the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show all members are present. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move. I'll second that.
Supervisor Shea, Supervisor Schultz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, we got a session, Chief Carmody, Council Police Department update on Southwest Iowa Training Facility, 100-yard range project. Thanks, Chief, for coming in. We want to get an update on the project and try to get clarity on the expenses and that type of thing. So appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity again this morning, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be before the board and to talk about this partnership again. On June 30th, 2020, we gathered to talk about this document because that was what was on your agenda that day. It was an update for the 28E agreement. And basically, it was just to clean up things on this agreement. At that time, I also shared the information that I had at that point about the 100-yard range opportunity. I expressed when Chairman Schultz asked me at that point how much it was going to cost. He says it's not going to be over $1 million. I said, no, it's going to be half. The challenge we had at that point is we did not have any detailed information from the target company and or the general contractor. There's no way to get that information without going through the process. It's a chicken and the egg thing. So what we did is I prepared this document for you in this packet. Actually, Andy and I worked on it together. This document contains not only the justification memo, it is a list of the 53 agencies that use the range. It provides a budget update, and this is the report that we'll get to the sheriff's office on a regular basis to provide the board. And then after that, you'll see 3 different justification documents from HDM. The initial one is dated July 23rd of 2019, and that was a rough estimate at that point without any other information on what the potential cost for the range was. As you'll note at that point at the bottom of that page, it shows a $2.09 million cost. So that kind of correlates back to the conversation we had that day. When I was asked what it would cost, I told you at that point, as it shows on line 13, that the range company believed it would cost about $750,000. When we finally went out to bid for this contract, the cost of steel and other things had gone up. The range quote came back much higher at $1.1 million. We also got the information on, we had to bring on board HGM officially, and they provided us the plans and architecture work to put a bid out for a general contractor. We let that bid, as it shows in the documents, and that bid actually came back at about 1.6. So the total cost is going to be 3.05, I believe is what's on there. $3.027 at this point. That was the document I shared in an email to the board as an update. I apologize for any confusion or lack of communication on my part. I should have been better about that. But we were doing the due diligence to try and actually calculate the actual cost to both parties. Without going through this in detail, I wanted to see if anybody had any questions about where we're at or any concerns about the project.
Tim, when you were here in June of 2020, I understand that it was early, but you had mentioned you anticipated the total cost to be $1.2 million.
No, sir, that's not what I said.
That's exactly what you said.
You can play the video. What I said is it was going to cost half. That was my response to Chairman Schultz. And when I quantified half, it was 1.2.
You said the total cost was 1.2 split in half.
No, sir, that's not what I said.
Okay, well, we can pull the video up if you'd like.
Okay, the data here does not support what you're saying, and that's not what I said. In the very beginning of this, in 2019, before we even started this project, it clearly says it's $2 million. There's no way it's going to be 1.2 total. There's no feasible way to do that. So I don't know why that came across that way. I apologize if that wasn't communicated clearly, but that's not the case.
Well, can you pull that up? Regardless, Chief Carmody, I respect you very much, but you said the total cost was gonna be 1.2. And then all we got was an email requesting 1.5 million, which is 250% higher than what the cost you presented to us in the meeting.
It is not higher. I told you it was half at that time. I still stay with that position. That was the discussion point we had that day when we talked about the 28E. It's always been that way. When I presented this information at the beginning, I explained where we were. I've updated that information now to give you the details. We anticipate the cost right now at about 1.5 apiece.
Can you get that? Right email.
Any other questions why we're looking for that?
Good, yeah, well, I just wanna, I'm gonna target this one, HGM. Kim, are you involved in this one, or is it someone else? So, what I've noticed is the contingency for HGM has changed on varying projects. Can you explain why that is? Because that also is a big chunk of change for us that we're paying half of, so I wanna know.
Sure, some of that is during the design phase, when we start talking to subcontractors and material contractors, just finding out. We try to narrow down what the expenses will be, just to anticipate whether or not material costs are gonna go up or down. So that's why some of that contingency changes. As we narrow down more of the design, that's where you'll see that change.
And the market has changed
The market
dramatically
has changed, yeah.
in the last 2 years.
And I mean, this was, of course, pre Andy Brown essentially, and I was at the meeting on June 30th, and I do remember Chief Carmody saying that it was going to be approximately 1.2 million per agency. So,
Yeah, I mean, from my memory, I just remember asking like, oh, well, our half not to exceed $1 million, and you're like, no, half. And I remember you spelling that out. I left that meeting thinking it was gonna be substantially less than what it is today, which, I mean, you know, we can debate that all night, but bottom line at this point, and this is my opinion, I think this needs to get done and move forward. I think this board, as well as possibly the sheriff's office, need to get a little creative for what that half looks like.
and I don't disagree with you. I think this will be the only agency-owned 100-yard range west of Des Moines.
Yeah.
And just even the revenue that, you know, the training center could have for outside instructors coming in and teaching, you know, rifle certifications would be good revenue for our community as well. So, and on top of the 50-plus agencies that use it. So it's been needed for a long time. ILEA standards say that we have to qualify on a 100-yard range for our rifles, and that has not been done for quite a few years,
I mean,
so.
like the alternative right now is you have to go to Camp Dodge or something like that to do it.
Well, we have a private citizen that we've certified with lately, and if he's not available, we have to drive to Lewis to get certified on our rifles, so.
Okay.
Can you get that up? Yeah.
The conversation starts at the 12:39 mark, if I remember correctly.
Pulled up
Is
here.
there anything that concerns either of you two going forward beyond what, you know, what you presented here as far as, is there anything else that's kind of making you lose sleep at night about this project?
About the project?
Yeah.
No, when we were in the planning process, we worked with the sheriff's office side and the people on the range and Kim and her folks to make sure that we quantified it properly and didn't overspend it. There were things that we removed from this project to make sure that it stayed within the scope. The biggest change that we had was from Action Target.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, all of our range equipment, all of our ranges are built and run by Action Target equipment. So to go to a different vendor would have completely turned everything upside down for that single range. Maintenance, equipment, operations, computers.
Are these like pop-up targets or are they side up
No,
targets?
it's pneumatically operated targets. So it's run from the booth and turns and faces. That's
Okay.
all it does.
But the majority of the cost is the catch bins and stuff like that for all the lead that we put down range, so, you know, they have, you know, recommendations are, you know, essentially laws that they say we have to have certain, you know, catch bins and they have to be empty so many times, and that's, the majority of the cost is
That's-
actually just what's downrange, so.
A large part of it. The other significant investment that we make is the no blue sky rule, which means that if someone accidentally fires a round up, it doesn't leave the range, which is protection for everybody that's down there, including the Google plant. So we want to make sure it's safe, that it lasts for this long time. And, you know, it's just like the building project that we just went through with the city. We worked hours and hours and hours to make sure that stayed in budget. We've done the same thing to try and keep this in budget. There was one factor that we couldn't control. We're gonna continue to monitor this and manage it. We wanna make the best investment for the taxpayer. That's the bottom line, and get the best return for our people and for the community.
What's your anticipated revenue a year?
The way it sits right now we're averaging between 40 and 69,000 a year. We haven't anticipated how much more we'll gain from the 100-yard range, but I would think it would go up significantly. I would say maybe 10,000. Scott, do you have an idea?
That would be the best guess.
Will that cover costs?
Absolutely not. The majority of the costs for the range facility and the operations are borne by the city. So we cover the costs of the personnel that are down there. It's documented here. It's $300,000 a year. Then there's maintenance costs that we cover unless it rises above a $5,000 threshold. I think it was 5 or 10. And then we work within the budget planning process for most agencies to say, this is what we want to do for a coordinated effort, and this is what it's going to cost for that. And then it comes before you, and it comes before you to identify what a capital expense is.
Before you hit play,
You don't put, in your budget, anything for the shooting range, do you?
We do have a line item that we essentially, it doesn't usually get spent till toward the end of the year, during the fiscal year. Just the fact of like what they may need. I think one year
It's minimal, I think it's $10,000.
$10,000, which isn't much. I think we've done concrete one year, we bought filters.
Is it labeled shooting range? Is it labeled shooting range in your budget?
I believe so.
No, it's training something, it's on the
Okay.
bottom of general obligation. I'd have to
Okay.
get the budget and show you, but it's,
No, that's fine.
it doesn't say specifically that.
Okay, but that's what it's for.
Right.
Okay.
so I remember my question now. So when the other law enforcement agencies use this, is there a type of rental fee or some type of agreement that they pay?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
It depends on whether it's a classroom or one of the ranges, and then we'll determine, based on market value, what that fee will be for the range. And we've raised that recently in the last couple of years to increase the coverage for actually the maintenance costs that go with it, because the more use there is, the more we have to maintain it.
Makes sense.
You don't bill any cities that are in Potawatomi County, do you? Carter Lake gets to use it free, Avoca gets to use it free?
No, the only people that are free are the sheriff's office and our agency. We don't bill the sheriff's office.
But with that being said, I mean, don't quote me on this, Tim. I mean, Carter Lake and Avoca kind of piggyback on our training, so if they get billed or not, that's,
So if they're there with the sheriff's
yeah,
office, they're
I
not
mean,
getting
they
billed
probably
separately.
do not get billed. So most agency in Potawatomi County are shoot down there for free, so.
We're just trying to cover the cost of operations.
Well, you know, the thing that we don't want to go down, and I appreciate you giving us the information you did today, because that's something that we need to have to make sure we don't end up with a situation like we did with the building next door, so. The other breakdown, it would probably be beneficial for us from an auditor standpoint, and a state auditor, if we can get copies of the invoices that support the invoice that you sent to us. So,
Sure.
and then, I guess I would be probably more helpful to keeping a half of the contingency until we get to the end of the project and see if that's even needed. Right now, the contingency is about projected at 144,000. Would that be about right?
The contingency,
Yeah.
I have to double check. We have a meeting today, we can discuss that and get back to you on it.
Okay. That's as of this April 7th one project.
Then that's the most current one, Scott.
Okay. So,
So Scott, are you asking, since the city's in charge of the construction of the project, are you asking the city to send us progress payments that the contractor would submit to the city
yeah, I
for us to
think
pay it?
those documents, well, we're gonna pay the city.
Yes.
Yeah,
I just think it's cleaner anyway for the auditor side of things.
just so we have it, if they ask, you know. If they say, well, you just paid them $1.5 million, and the auditor said, well, where's stuff?
You need some documentation
Right.
and,
I mean, that,
for
it's
what you
kinda-
spent the money on.
Kind of follows the 28E a little bit myself, I think, but I just think it's best that we share in those, documents as well. I mean, since we're partners in it and such, I mean,
When's the estimated completion?
It was August 6th. Now there's a potential delay of 20 days because of a late start, because of compaction. But we will discuss that again this afternoon. So our goal is to have it done in August, if not September. So just so I understand clearly, when we get those, we get them at varied times. Do you want them as they come in, or do you want them?
no, well, I don't. You want them as they come in? You send them to the board?
Send them to the.
We'll take them, Scott, and then we'll present them, we'll bring them in for you guys, so that Melvin's got them and you guys got them.
Okay,
Cause we meet every 2 weeks.
okay. Whatever's the convenient, I mean, it's really the communication according to the 28E is between you and you, the Council's Police and the sheriff, and then you're supposed to go to your respective board, i.e. the supervisors, and you're supposed to go to your respective city council. That's the way.
We'll do that, we'll collect that for you.
I can have, I'm not the attorney, so I get to play one today.
I do think after this meeting, whatnot, or maybe in your meeting this afternoon that you guys are having, I do think, Andy or Chief Deputy, whichever one of you want to come, I think we should have a little, I don't know if I'll call it a subcommittee or a workshop, but I just think it'd be helpful so that we can, just given the fact that we've already put in a budget in place for next year, I just think we need to get a little creative with that budget, and I think we need your help with it. So it'd be helpful if we could get you guys to come in and just chat with us. We could do a work session or something in the afternoon after a board meeting, but I just want to make sure that we know exactly how we're going to pay for this thing, and then not have it necessarily affect our other projects we have in line for this next year. I personally don't see it being an issue. I will say absolutely this was a little bit of a surprise to me. The sticker shock was there. I think after the discussions I've had, and obviously what you presented today, I'm a little more comfortable about it.
That's helped a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time coming in.
And so roughly, I'm just guessing that probably somewhere around 300,000, or has Lynn Ross started already?
How much has been spent down already?
Pardon?
How much have we spent down already?
Well, did Lynn Ross start already? Are they down there working?
We've already done compaction work. We've got invoices from HDM for the architecture and engineering.
Right.
We've got other invoices from the compaction work. We have, I believe, one invoice from Action Target.
Oh, okay.
And there's about $255,000 that will be spent down, that has to be spent down before the end of the fiscal year for us.
Okay. Great. No, I appreciate the information, and if we can keep that line of communication open and follow the 28E as best we can, and I think it's keep us all in a better place, and then we can put, we can get those numbers, we can put that on next week's agenda and get us up to date on what our obligation is.
Okay.
If that's amicable to you.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it.
Your folks, so.
As I said in the closing statement, we very much appreciate the partnership with the county. We work very hard to maintain that and the support
Right.
of the board.
No, we need to try to do as much, if not more, together, if the state would allow us to do some of those things, it seems like, but, let's continue to be partners as much as we can,
I don't really want to beat a dead horse, but I want Chief Carmody and I to come up, finish this conversation, so at least we know where we're both at. So can you play a little bit of that? Do we have volume
Well,
with
if
it?
we're gonna play it, let's play the whole thing, because I repeatedly say half.
No problem.
I guess I feel that it is what it is. Whether we prove something with this tape or not, I don't get it. So, whatever you wanna do.
Well,
I don't think we need to. we're still at this $3 million.
Yeah, I firmly believe that when Chief Carmody came in here, he had us anticipating our cost to be $600,000 based on his estimate. I know it was a year-old estimate. And then to just fire off an email and say, here's an invoice for 1.5 million, it was a hell of a shock to me. I mean, we went from anticipating a $600,000 cost to end up with 1.5. And transparency was terrible. I wish you would have came to us and, presented it differently, and I don't know. I don't know. It is what it is.
So we still gonna watch it or not then, or where we at?
You know what, I don't really care. I know I'm right, the cost, if he goes back and looks at the whole video, he says that the cost of the range was 750,000, and then targets and this and that brought it to about 1.1 to 1.2, and those costs are split. And that's the way I saw the video. I watched it 25 times at least, and just disappointed in the process of how we got here.
That makes two of us.
I guess,
What's that?
I said that makes two of us. I wish I'd have been a little bit clearer because that was not my intent. My intent was to say that 1.2 is the halfway point for each one of us. I've never done anything less than show you all the information I have. It's disappointing on my side too.
I just want to make the statement that I want to reiterate our support for this project. At least on my, as me, you have my full 100% support for this thing. Costs always are a pain in the neck. They always seem to never be what we always think they're supposed to be, sometimes less. But in this case, it went a lot higher than we anticipated, and at this point, I just want you to know that you have my full commitment that we're gonna get this thing done. However that shakes out on our side, figuring out how to pay for it, we'll figure that bill out, but, this should happen, and I want this partnership to continue, and, things happen. I'm not looking at this in a negative light. I think this can be a positive thing for us well into the future, and I don't want to take away from what good this is gonna be down the road, so I'll leave my statement there.
Well, I support the project as well. Just extremely disappointed that, between the presentation and the final costs.
Okay. So, does anybody want to see the video? I mean, it is what it
I don't
is.
know, can you just bury the hatchet and say Supervisor Wickman was right then, and we can get on with this thing, or what? I mean, we're beating a dead horse now at this point in time, so it's something that we need. It's just the fact of who is right and who is wrong. Do we need to prove something here or not? So.
And I think we can get creative this afternoon
Yeah.
and help you out.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think.
We strongly believe in this project,
We've all-
and we're willing to sacrifice some other stuff for it, so.
Yeah, we just, at the end of the day,
I don't think anyone on this board has a different opinion from this, that we want to make sure our law enforcement, no matter whether it's city council bluffs or any of our other entities that tie to us, that they have what they need to do their jobs. And in this environment, this world that we're in right now, I mean, it's insane. I think it's incredibly difficult to be in law enforcement right now. And I really have no idea how you're doing with recruiting or how you're able to do what you're doing with that. And so if it means that we got to spend a little extra buck to get what we need so we can make sure that our officers and anyone in law enforcement are able to do their job correctly and accurately and safely, I'm all about it.
We
Because
appreciate
every
it.
time we see something on the news, every time we see something on social media, it always boils down to, well, was this person properly trained? Was this person, well, I don't want that to be the excuse from our side of things. And so if this is what it takes, then so be it. And you've got our commitment that we'll make sure we get it done.
And I think the communities of Pot County and Council Bluffs and all the cities expect security and safety as top priority, so.
And we're recruiting out of a nursing home if you haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
if you folks wanna come to the front row,
Get you on camera a little bit.
I'm almost like speaking that right now.
Okay, you come on out. Jim and Mark and Sandy and how are you doing?
How you doing?
Mark and Mark, got Mark and Mark. And John? From HGM up here and John Jordan up here for the board for discussion on potential subdivision of 240th Street and Canyon Trail. Who wants to start?
Well, my name is Mark Hughes, and maybe best would let John from HGM kind of start on some of the changes we've made to the map
Okay.
from the last time we were here. Thank you for having us.
Okay, John.
So you all have the copy of it in front of you. What we've done is added some color. The blue lots shown. Blue lots shown are lot splits, quarter section. You can have two splits per quarter section. And we've got the 12 shown. 12 shown is the lot splits. The 4 red on Pioneer Trail are actually minor subdivisions, which will need to become off a hard surface in order to do that. There was some concern down here on the south east quadrant where there's a Mormon something, I'm not sure what it is exactly, but so we, instead of coming out onto the highway there through their preserve, we turned those and now they're facing 240th Street. Then in addition, we've shown for the major subdivision 6 different or 5 different phases with that from like 14 to 17 lots per phase. That's kind of where we're at. I think we have driveway permits for the majority of the lot splits.
We do, and I actually spoke with the supervisor from secondary roads this morning, and the 2 lots 1 and 2 and 9 and 10 have also been approved.
Is lot, are you waiting on lot still then, on 240th Street, or everything's been approved?
I believe everything's been approved on 240th.
Nope, that was 9 and 10, Cindy. We believe everything's been approved.
Okay, I guess, before we get too further, I wanna say thank you for meeting with me last week.
Thank you.
I know we kind of had to throw some last minute changes in there, and we really appreciate your willingness to, work with us on this. I think kind of on behalf of some of the residents that really are supportive of that the Mormon monument that's out there, they are super appreciative as well. And so, we really appreciate you guys being good neighbors, obviously with the future construction here. Thank you for doing that.
And I think we just had a misunderstanding, not understanding what the change was or for why. But then when we were explained about the Mormon Trail area and that sign and how people stop there, we were more than willing to make the changes, and John from HGM redrew the roads and changed things. So I guess once we had a full understanding of what the situation was, we adjusted. Thank you.
So one thing you'll probably notice with this is that there are less homes than, when we had our last discussion, we talked about having water there and we could go down to 1 acre lots. It sounds like the developer would like to stick with kind of the 2 acre lot style for the majority of this neighborhood. Obviously there's some that are gonna be plus or minus or a little bit plus or right at 2 acres, but I'll just say, having grown up out that direction and some of the other neighborhoods that are there, I think this design will nest well with what's there. And I think it'll be good for the homes to have a little bit of space, but you guys still gonna have that neighborhood feel. So I think it's gonna be a pretty incredibly desirable neighborhood once these are up and going.
are all the lots gonna be on the water system?
No. What wouldn't be?
Which ones aren't?
Well, part of that would probably be on the timeline of your guys' water line, when that would come here. But right now, any lots in blue or any lots in red, our goal is to get those houses started over the next 30 to 45 days. And then we would have wells on those lots until that water line came along. And then if we had lots we hadn't sold yet, we could hook onto the city water. But if somebody had a well, we wouldn't expect them to have to unhook their well and hook onto the city water unless they had a problem with their well and chose to. And one thing that I don't think we know, and I don't think, one thing that you exactly know yet, is when we would have that water line, coming up that direction. I mean, how long is it gonna take to plan and design that, engineer, come up with the funds and for all that to happen? So,
Thinking next year, right?
I think they're thinking like August, I think is what they said, is that right, Matt?
August, September 2022.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for the sake of this picture though, you're looking at these lots, we're treating these no different than we would any other lot in the county, really, with this type of design, with factory, minor subdivisions, things like that. The water's obviously gonna be there, so when these folks buy these homes, they may opt to get on that city water for their house and then run their, sprinkler systems on the well or something. I mean, that'll be their call. It'll be there, and I can tell you, having grown up out there and living on those wells, that more than likely if that water's there, they may decide to do that anyway. Treating that well water out there is pretty tough to do. But I think, we're gonna lose, 12 homes here off the well. In the grand scheme, I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. If the water's there, obviously, your commitment is that you'll tap onto it if it's there when it's.
yeah. And when we sell the current lots or start building houses on them, if we had a direction of knowing the water line was gonna be on the north or the east side or west side, where it was coming out, we might adjust on where we would start building the houses too, if we knew the exact direction of where that water line was coming. But I still think all that's up in the air and probably still in the design phase a little bit.
I don't know where
It's coming up Dumfries.
It will come up Dumfries?
It'll come up Dumfries.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, do we have they're working on easements and stuff like that right now, right? The water.
Correct. They sent them, the board had asked for the change in proposal to show what the cost difference would be if they switched over to 240th Street. They submitted that to us. We came here last week to make a decision on, are we gonna go up Dumfries or are we gonna go up and cut across at the county line and come up 240th Street? And at that meeting was where we decided we're gonna come up Dumfries at the original proposal that they had given us. And so that is, and then now you have the agreement sitting before you, in your emails for comment wise, and then they'll come in and decide on that. But the route right now is to come up Dumfries, it'll hit Pioneer Trail, it'll go east on Pioneer Trail to 240th Street, and then potentially up 240th Street the rest of the way to Highway 92. But the first phase of it is just gonna come to Dumfries and Pioneer Trail, and it'll have the ability to feed those two different housing subdivisions that are in that area.
Are you,
Is that quick enough for you?
Well, if I was to guess, I would guess that we wouldn't have all the houses in the blue and red maybe going or sold by that time, but we won't know that until we start kind of listing the houses and putting it out to the general public. We haven't put up any signs or anything yet, but, after this meeting, I would hope to get some build-to-suit signs put on some of these lots and then see what type of, interest that we have. We expect high interest.
you're gonna do the project though, you're not gonna sell lots to other.
Well, my current goal would be to do as much as I can, but we'll have to see what the demand is and how it goes. But my goal would be, I'd love to build every house in there,
Yeah.
but time will tell how that works out.
Sure. Be nice if there's a whole bunch of lumber stacked in the middle there.
Yeah. I could feel the pain earlier when they were talking about the expenses going up on the shooting range, so.
Yeah.
So if, when I'm looking at Dumfries and I see you have the potential there, I guess when you build this neighborhood, or do you have a method to your madness on how you're gonna, where you're gonna start and things like that inside? Because let's just hypothetically say this board does decide to hard surface Dumfries,
and make it available so that you could have access to your neighborhood from there. I mean, I guess so lot 50 looks like it gets split in half if the road was there. Am I reading that wrong?
Well, we'd reconfigure those so they would face the dash line. Those roads go through to Dumfries.
So I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but I guess I would just ask that you hold off building those until, like, make those some of your last ones, because
Okay,
maybe
okay.
if we can come to an agreement on getting Dumfries, whether it's a bituminous surface or whatever we call it now, or I don't think it's gonna be pavement by any means, but it may be able to be a situation where we can at least have vehicles dump off on that road. I think it'll just help with traffic internally, keep safety a little bit better too.
And again, if I try to explain my method to my madness, I would like to get started on the blue lots, something we can work on right away.
Yeah.
See what our interest was. The red lots, I believe, are a minor subdivision. It's my understanding that maybe in 3 or 4 months that can be done, so that's not too far down the road. And then on phase 1, I guess when I look at the property, that's probably one of my favorite corners, of the property, kind of up high on the hill. I think that just looked like a great place to start. And then where we go from there, we met the other day, it's like, well, maybe it makes sense just go, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5 around there and in that situation. And then I was talking to Matt a minute ago, and Matt acted like where phase 5 is, maybe that needs to be put maybe a little bit more to the top of the list, since that road's gonna be paved there at 240th Street. So I guess the phases could be sure changed. I also was looking at a little bit, if I was at phase 5 and that was the last one, I'm not driving by every homeowner on phase 1, 2, 3, 4 that we've built houses on, or construction equipment's coming into phase 5 and leaving phase 5 without having to disturb everybody else. So I'd say all that's up for discussion, but that was a little bit of the method of the madness.
What we'd also, you guys like to have you do is put this into a TIF district. And as we understand it, just based on what's here, these 16 lots that we've got plotted out here today, which should generate around $96,000 to $100,000 a year in taxes. And if we understand it properly, the way it would work, about 65% of that tax money could go towards the infrastructure in here. And then the other 35%, the county would have to be used for other low to moderate income projects in the county, or wherever you choose to use it, as I understand it. And so we would like to have it in a TIF district, so we would have the ability to use that tax generated money to push this project forward as fast as we can. And so the beauty of this, with the 16 lots that are out there, that would generate about, based on my numbers, around $96,000 to $100,000 a year, which would really get this project rolling.
And when you're saying not just the phase lots, all the lots in blue and red, the whole project, you like in a TIF district?
Correct. The 236 acres, put it into a TIF district where it would all work together.
Jim, you anticipate those 17 lots will produce $90,000 in taxes?
Yes. Just if you take 400,000, 50% of it taxable, you'd have 200,000 taxable at $30 a thousand. That's 6,000 a house. So, and probably 400 will be the low end on them. So they'll probably generate more than that, but based on what I know, they will generate that kind of money.
There's 16 lots.
Yeah, but not all of those taxes get paid to the county.
I understand that. Part of it goes to school first, and,
Yeah.
but the school bonds, as I understand it, gets paid first. And then the 65% would be available for our infrastructure, and the other 35% the county would have to be used for low to moderate in the county. That's the way I understand it. I don't know if you've done TIF projects in the county before, but we do quite a few of them, and Bob Jostin is with the Johnston Law Firm in Des Moines is who we've used on our other TIF projects. And if the county would fund it, it's a benefit for us versus us funding it. And the interest rate that we get costs me a little more money to borrow money than it does the county. But it would be, if the county has the ability to finance it, we would gladly guarantee it. And then we'd get a cheaper interest rate if you guys would be willing to do that.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I would be interested. I do have another question for you.
Okay.
For you, Jim. If you take a look at lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they all have access to an interior road.
Where we at, Sandy?
Any particular reason why you would put the driveways off at 240th?
What lots again, Tim?
Here in the corner.
6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Interior roads.
The main reason is that we can build on it today and get the money started rolling on it.
Will they have interior access to the?
They will
interior
have,
access
yes.
Probably when the road comes by?
They will have, yes.
And then would those roads close?
No. No. Would the driveways close?
Yeah.
No.
Are your houses gonna face the 240th Street, those ones we're talking about, or do you think they'll face the interior? Obviously, your garage would be in the back of the house, possibly, is that what you're thinking?
They'll be in the front of the house. The lot sizes, you guys, are 2.27, 2.25. They're pretty big lots. Am I correct on that, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Basically, if we go back to 9 and 10, there's the blue ones in the middle. When we discussed that the other day, we mentioned that maybe it would be a good idea to come up with a home plan that had garages that were in the rear of the home and the front face that road. So that was discussed there. We didn't really talk much about lot 6 or 7, but the plan had changed because we moved things for the Mormon Trail sign. So that would also be a true statement. You know, the goal would be to try to build houses that had rear-facing garages and the front of the house faced the road. So when you went through subdivision, all the houses were facing the road. Lot 6 and 5 on the bottom right-hand corner, those kind of stand alone by themselves. But I think if you were to ask the general public that was building a house, I think most of them would prefer loading off the 240th Street road than being in part of the middle of the subdivision. So I think they're going to be a little bit more desirable. And then, you know, we're probably a few years away from actual interior roads and the water lines being there and everything to do that.
Is there like an HOA inside there too?
I would hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope not. You know, the ones that we've been part of, it's kind of hard for everybody to get along.
Yeah.
And the only thing we probably have to deal with there is probably that proposed detention pond and how that's taken care of in the future. But it's not a whole lot of fun when them neighbors get together once a year and have meetings and try to make rules. My vote would be to have that as limited as possible from the ones I've been to, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that'd be written into your homeowners association agreement?
We'll have covenants, but our goal is to have covenants that keep the neighborhood a very nice neighborhood, but not have a book of rules that's 1 inch thick on what people can and can't do. I mean, we want to try to have a nice neighborhood with a set of rules that makes for a nice addition without going over the top.
I'd like to see something written in there about the detention pond, because it does become an issue.
Okay.
We had that out at Crescent, and it's still a mess out there.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all for it when it starts, but when it comes time to maintain it, they point the fingers and jump back.
Yeah, the beauty of this one, though, is the scheme of the bluffs, it's at the top, so I mean, I really don't anticipate a ton of
In
issues.
10 years, when that needs cleaned,
Yeah, no,
we want that taken care of and not finger
Sure.
pointing.
Sure.
That's my goal.
You're correct on that.
So, here's one that I, because of, our winters that we have here, these roads are gonna be dedicated to the county, right?
Yeah.
These
Yes.
interior roads.
Yes.
Are you considering at all to put in, I don't know if it's a requirement or not, from the US Postal Service, those cluster boxes? Rather than,
They may,
John's guy's going peeling off, what, 15 mailboxes when they go through there?
the post office may require that. I think they've, in other additions we've done, I think the post office kind of dictates that,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, I didn't know, I know that, when they go to plow those areas with the cul-de-sacs and stuff, and this year especially got phone calls from people that said that we plowed in their mailboxes down at those cul-de-sacs and that type of thing, so.
I know we did addition a few years ago that down in Mills County, the engineer requested I put in the covenants, no planting or nothing in the first 10 feet of back a curb, because the snowplow guy, when there's a foot of snow, can't see what back a curb is, and they got trouble for tearing out sprinklers and landscaping, so that was a rule, nothing in the first 10 foot, so maybe we could look at that again.
Are you thinking curb and gutter then?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay. Well, I'm just curious about it seemed like that was a lot of the calls we got with mailboxes.
Yeah. I think the postal service dictated that in our last subdivision.
Okay.
Mr. Hughes, let me understand, you want the county to finance the roads
And the water.
and then,
Yeah.
and the water,
Mhm.
and then the tip,
Correct,
pay.
correct.
Essentially, his first set of homes will pay that bill.
Well, I think those two will be separate. The water will be separate from the project, interior roads and that kind of thing, right?
The TIF allows us to do the interior roads, the water, and,
Okay, I'm thinking
Your
of
interior water.
yeah, interior water and interior roads.
the,
We still have
Engineering, surveying.
yeah,
The
engineering.
main line is a separate project from this housing subdivision. Within the housing subdivision and the TIF developers agreement that we would do with the Hugheses, it would include development of the roads and the utility and interior of there.
So that you anticipate streetlights or anything like that too? Does that happen in these neighborhoods or?
Haven't really gotten that far.
Yeah. Yeah, usually, we haven't, never did streetlights in the county.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Given the size of this neighborhood, that's why.
Yeah.
While you're talking about utilities, you give any thought to running fiber somehow?
That is included. The planning commission pushes on that aspect very hard to make sure that there's.
It's all underground, everything's underground, right?
Yeah.
There's streetlights out there by.
And you guys, when you build this size of lots out there, it's fairly expensive to develop it. Where like in town, on an acre lot, you'd have three lots, here, if we got 2.5 acre lots out there, the concrete and the engineering and the whole 9 yards costs more, but it creates a wonderful subdivision, and it'll open up houses in town where people want to do the move up. So I think everybody wins on it. And so most of the TIF projects run, in phases, 10 to 15 years. That's how it's usually structured. But with this jump start of us getting started on this is really unusual, which is a great deal because it starts generating money right away.
Pam, how far are we away from getting the water line agreement presented to the board?
The one that I emailed to you guys.
It will be next week. So you have your comment period right now. It will be on the agenda for next week as long as we don't have any questions or other major revisions that the board chooses to have.
I would just urge the board to really consider getting Dumfries as a hard surface road, connecting. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's gotta be a
whole thing's gotta be bituminous or whatever. I mean, I just think at some point, if we can hard surface Dumfries to Woodland, we can ease some traffic patterns out there. I think it'll help this neighborhood potentially with internal traffic.
If you go bituminous on Dumfries, you cannot outlet this subdivision onto it. You'd have to have full depth asphalt or cement to dump the subdivision out
Does
onto
that
it.
need to be the entire stretch from Pioneer Trail all the way to Woodland, or just the part that's gonna be butting up to this neighborhood?
Just the part that would butt up to the neighborhood.
So I mean, I think the board really should strongly consider doing so.
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't under
Yeah.
the impression of you could, seal coat it and then dump the neighborhood
No,
out onto it.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. Whatever it takes to meet whatever our ordinance would be on this one, but I just think that would be very beneficial to this area. It will just ease some of the traffic. I don't know how many of you have lived in neighborhoods before, but, this is obviously gonna be a lot of families that are gonna be living here. And a lot of these kids are gonna be going to Lewis Central, and if you can have different routes for kids to take and not have to go from Pioneer Trail all the way to the back of the neighborhood, it'll ease some of that potential safety issues we could have in this neighborhood, Plus, I think it could open up some opportunity too for down the line on the other side of Woodland. I'll keep talking about that with the board as we go forward, but I really do think we need to consider that.
We're excited about getting started. It looks like everybody's on track. On our side of it, if you guys are, we're ready to roll.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this is gonna be a great addition to our county. We talk about trying to do economic development a lot, and, it's always the chicken and egg concept. Okay, do we put the businesses in first, or do we get the homes in first? And I think right now we got a good, complement of each other. We got, we've worked with Advanced Southwest Iowa, we're doing a lot of really good things, bringing businesses in. And then, bringing in these type of neighborhoods fits right in with what we're trying to accomplish. So I think it's gonna be a great project. And as far as your TIF concerned, I mean, you got my support on that as well, so.
What's your projected timeline on the whole deal?
I would say it's a 10-year project.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
would be my guess. And hopefully it would happen faster than that, but I'd say.
The faster, the easier the chip pays it back.
We did a 72 lot subdivision in Glenwood. It was a 10-year project. I think it'll happen a lot faster up here because we've got a higher financial market in this area, I believe. So I think it'll happen faster, but realistically, I think we're looking at a 10-year project without blowing smoke.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you coming in and your willingness to develop this ground out there in rural Pot County, and hopefully we can keep the communications open and get you the updates on when the water line and how that's progressing and where that's gonna actually be at when we have that available.
We'd probably love to come to those water line meetings, and kind of keep up with what's going on, so
Right.
we're aware and be part of the meetings.
I don't, do you meet with the water line or with their engineer people? Is that who you meet with usually?
They should both be here next week.
Okay.
Soon we present that
Yeah,
agreement.
I'd be more than happy to comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pam and Matt, try to keep you in the loop of that. Okay.
Does that sound good to all you guys, that's what we're doing? And I know some of it'll get tweaked a little bit, John, I suppose, but you can see those dotted lines where we're trying to eliminate those cul-de-sacs and come out onto Dumfries. On that plat, you notice that if you look there where the two cul-de-sacs are, with you guys' permission and everything working with Matt, then them would get redesigned and come right straight out onto Dumfries and eliminate two cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does, and so did I have a better understanding of the TIF process? So they use a law firm out of Des Moines. Do they normally develop that documentation, or is that something that
We will utilize Dorsey's to come up with the urban renewal plan for that parcel of ground. And then after the urban renewal plan is adopted and the TIF ordinance gets passed, then we will simultaneously, in there a little bit, the developer's agreement's getting worked around, right? They have to get us some proposed costs from the engineers, so we know what kind of TIF package they're looking at. It'll be phased, just like the subdivision portion of it is. So for phase one, you know, the TIF amount would be this much. And that way we could get those development agreements signed, they could get the infrastructure in the ground, they could start getting repaid on that aspect of it and work our way through. But the urban renewal plan and the TIF piece of it takes us the longest to get completed through.
Okay.
That's the same company that I'm talking about,
Dorsey.
not Johnson, it's Dorsey Whitney, same firm.
Oh, yeah?
Same firm.
Okay. So you're familiar with them? Pretty
Do you know what you're gonna name it yet? Or are you gonna hold off on that unveiling for a while?
I think Pioneer Meadows is the current name.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? Okay.
Good.
Any questions for us?
No,
Okay.
we're very happy.
Okay.
So I guess our next step is we'll have John work with Pam and the surveyors to get these lots in blue split off and try to get some houses going within 30 to 45 days, just however long it takes. We'll start some houses right away.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I just, for consideration here, I mean, given why we're here and what we're gonna talk about next, I'd like to just make a motion that we table this conversation into next week. I became privy to some information that I didn't have last week when I made my decision, and while my decision today has not changed on the way I want to proceed forward, I do feel that it is worth the time for the other board members to speak and learn the same information that I learned yesterday before they make their final call on it. It just, to me, that, you know, we have to do what's, you know, when it comes to bidding, we take the lowest responsible bid. I think we need to have total understanding of what it means to say responsible, so before we sign this. And I think with this information that the board members may gather this next week, they will have an opportunity to make sure that their decision is firm as what I am today.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to table the.
It'd be postponed,
discussion.
actually.
Yeah, postpone it, yeah, sorry.
Motion to postpone the signature of the contract with Mako Henny Contract Courthouse Edition. And we have a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, at the last board meeting, this board made a motion to award the contract to Meko Henny and sign the contract this week, today. I would like that still to happen today. If there's some discussion that needs to happen or should happen within the next week, it can still happen. But we need to move forward with this project, in my opinion, and authorize the chairman to sign the contract with Meko Henny.
Okay, any other discussion? So we have a motion and second to postpone.
Mr. Chairman, you roll call,
No.
please.
Okay,
Yeah,
roll
was there
call
a date that you wanted to postpone it
till
to?
next Tuesday. The 11th.
Yeah, I guess that's that.
Okay, Chairman Bell,
All right.
then I'm gonna get this written down here. Supervisor Groby,
Aye.
Supervisor Supervisor Schultz,
Aye.
Supervisor Shea,
Aye.
Supervisor Wickman.
Nay.
Okay. Discussion and decision, they'll need to make, arrangements with, Matt to have discussions with those.
Yeah, yep,
Want me to set that up?
yeah, if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. No problem.
Discussion and decision to approve and authorize chairman to sign the certificate of substantial completion for courthouse renovation project.
Are we ready to go with that, Chair?
We are.
I'll make that.
I'll second.
Jason, Supervisor Wickman, thank you, Supervisor Schultz. That is for the Ronco.
Basically the B-Wing contract, right?
Courthouse renovation project, yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that, it's a final number in there?
We did it last week, didn't we?
No. There is not, a number, is there? Do we still have an outstanding?
Is that outstanding?
Yeah.
$43,595.58 outstanding.
3,000.
595.
595 and what?
58 cents.
58 cents?
Yep.
And then, is there, is that the retainage, or is there still retainage too?
That's the retainage. That's retainage.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Maria Sieg, Public Health, are you?
I'm gonna stand in for Maria.
Okay.
She's at Dale High School,
Matt Wyatt.
in a vaccine clinic.
General
Thanks,
Delivery, Human Resources, discussion and decision to approve job description and community health organization.
Oh, there it is.
Jason's leaving. Okay.
Do we need him?
Well, it's Slack, I'd like to. Okay.
You want me?
Wow. Okay,
Ready?
yep.
The community health organizer position has been around for about 2 years. It's been a part-time position, averaging about 27 hours a week. The original purpose of it was to conduct the community health needs assessment, and it's been paid for by the local public health grant. So we'd like to make this position a full-time position, including benefits. It will continue to be paid for by the local public health grant as well as the tobacco grant, which will be starting July 1st and will be running for 5 years. So both of those grants will cover this position plus some, including the benefits of this position.
Tobacco grant, what was the other one?
Local public health grant.
Local public health grant, is that from?
So the local public health grant is monies that come to us each year. That is, it's billable to, we have to bill back to, it's from Iowa Department of Public Health. It goes to every local public health department based on a per capita rate is what your contracted amount is. That's the one that I've been working with the Iowa legislature because since H1N1 happened, and that was kind of the peak of what each county received, we received about $1 million that year. They have been knocking those, it has gone down every year. Currently, we receive about $210,000 per year from that contract. We were just awarded a tobacco cessation grant. That is a $48,000 a year grant. And that grant is so it's set up like our STD grant is. It's a 1-year grant that you get for 5 years. So you go through reapply it. It's competitive to get in it, but once you're in it, then you got it for 5 years as long as you want to continue to do it and you submit for that you're providing those services.
So I guess my question, well, I guess before we get into discussion, I'll motion to approve this.
I'll second for discussion.
My discussion point on this is, remember we put in this role, I just want to make sure that they have the understanding that come 4.5 years into this thing.
Yep.
That there may not be a future,
I'm very open with all of the public health employees that we bring on that are in roles in that way, that these are grant-dependent positions. So that individual actually winds up owning that grant. And they manage it, they bill back to it. They make sure that each one of those grants has a point person at the state. And so they have to maintain communication with that point person at the state. We get called into meetings with them when it comes time for our audits with them. They come down once a year and they'll audit what we're doing. And they'll call us in, each program, whether it's the STD program or the tobacco program, will do it. The tanning and tattoos, we go through audits with them as well. And so, but I am very clear, because I don't want to, I've told them all, I don't want to be that supervisor that walks in that day and next day, lets you know next day you don't have a job. I want you to at least have 30-day notice out that the grants, we didn't get awarded the grant, it's going to be coming to an end, your position's going to be coming to an end.
And it does state that in the job description as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always what's written there, and then you get this person that you really like, everyone really enjoys this person around, and then the end of their term comes, and it's like, oh shoot, now what? And I just wanna make sure that we don't, looking at the timeline on this, 5 years from now, I may not be here, so I don't wanna necessarily handcuff supervisors down the line and make them feel pressured to keep someone if they don't necessarily need.
It's one of the biggest reasons why we try to stay really competitive in that grant market. The tobacco grant was a grant that had been lost in our area for a few years. And so we went after it. And then there's another one that we're going after right now in the competitive market. I think we're moved into round 2, is for the alcohol abuse, alcohol awareness. And that will be up to a $130,000 a year grant for 5 years again.
So we still end up with the potential for unemployment claim at the end of the deal, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do we have, how many people we got on that situation right now?
I think there's 4.
We have 4 right now?
Mm-hmm.
And how long are their supposed contract or their grant?
2 of them could potentially be next year if they don't extend out the STD grant.
Next year being the end of 2022?
Yeah, it should be around.
Do they run calendar year grants usually?
No, so that grant actually runs in 3 different calendar years. There's 3 different funding sources that come to it. One of them does run January to December. Another one runs the federal, and then another one runs the state, which ends in June like us. So that's there's the it's the Ryan White Foundation that puts funds into it. There's a state that puts fund into it.
I mean, so is that written into their employment agreement or whatever? Do you see that?
That specific? It doesn't get that specific.
But they know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very clear with them. In the interview process and everything, I say it probably 6 times. I make them confirm it with me. I mean,
Any other discussion on community health organizer? That position was there somebody in that position?
we had Antonio in it originally. He was accepted into medical school, so he left for Texas. Then we filled it with Jade Stansel. She was in it. And her husband had accepted a job down in Nashville, so they moved down there. We've been struggling to fill it since, and it's really been because of that part-time basis of it. And I do think this is one of the positions that I really wanted to, when the American Rescue Plan funds come in, that I really wanted to expand upon, because it is really important to the health department and its roles in the community. Being a young health department, Potawatomi County, not necessarily having a centralized health department for a number of years, we have a lot of ground to make up to try to really bring in all of those community partners, centralize everything that has been so scattered about. These community health organizers play a huge role in building those relationships. And so that was when I originally came in and talked to you guys, talked to the board about what they planned on doing with the American Rescue Fund. I had made that funding request, potentially to stick in your minds to say if we could, that is one of the allowable things we know of under public health, is to help build these kinds of positions. And we know that the funding would come to an end in 2024. I don't have an issue making sure that those employees know that that's coming to an end, but for those couple of years, it would really give us an opportunity to build in some capacity into the health department.
Well, this American Rescue is, well, it's not, found a second gear yet, so.
I agree.
I'm hoping we get some clarity on that. I mean, it could help us with a bunch of different things that we got going on. It says what they say it's supposed to help out with water and drainage, infrastructure, and all the stuff that's out there, so. We'll see. Okay, any other discussion?
No, just right now, you have grants to cover this position.
Correct.
For 5 years.
Correct.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Matt Wyatt, Planning and Development Director, discussion or decision to approve and authorize chairman to sign service agreement with Build Day Development.
So this is in relation to the construction of the new Potawatomi County Public Health Building. And in the meetings that Jason and I have had, where do we kind of go, you know, we realize that the funding is there for it, but where do we go from here? That is where I would like to have this services agreement in place with Field Day Development, because this is exactly up their forte on, you know, now we have a budget. What does the building, you know, go from concept to reality? And they will help lead us the way there. And they have done projects up on the Hunter Block that you've seen. They've also done a number of projects over in Omaha. I think they're a very reputable company, and I really enjoy working with Andrea and her team. Brenda from the city of Council Bluffs moved over and joined her team. And so there's a lot of experience over there that will help us really make the construction of the public health building a success, rather than something that Jason has to come in here and present 100 change orders to, or have something else go wrong with it. So I really want it to go well. You guys have given us a great opportunity with those funds. I think they'll be key to it.
Matt, their development design team?
Correct, and construction management. So they'll start the project from concept all the way to completion. And one of the best parts about them is that, you know, we've all sat in meetings to where you can hear the project automatically kind of get way out of hands with everybody's hopes and dreams, and you know, the $3 million project turns into a $6 million project real quick. And so they are there to ensure, not only on my side, that we stay grounded and our expectations stay real, but then at the same time for the contractors, and to fight for us on, you know, are we going to pay that change order or not, or was that described out in the plans? The better job we do planning up front and getting those bids prepared up front, the less likely they are to have a bunch of change orders. They just completed one $26 million project over in Omaha, and there was not one change order submitted on that project. So
I'll make a motion to approve.
What was the?
I'll second it.
What's the anticipated cost on this, man?
It's a service agreement right now, so it'll go on the hours that they bill to us. I don't have what a top dollar would be on it.
Don't you think we should know that? And estimate?
Not to exceed.
I mean, do you want to put a not to exceed amount on there?
Well, I wish they were here so they could tell us what the anticipated would be.
And that was on my part that they're not. I just told them that I would take the service agreements to the board. They asked if they should be here. I said I didn't think that they really needed to be.
What, or I guess, is this a vision for a building that we don't know where it's gonna go then?
We know where the building's going to go.
You're gonna go over there?
Where the current
services building is at now.
That's where you're gonna.
I think the city but Jason did come to me last week, and I do think that the city of Council Bluffs is really kind of pushing to see what it would take for the county to change location and put it in the current metered parking lot. because
To
of
out
parking,
front here?
yes.
Oh, really? What he had indicated to me, cause I didn't know.
It had something to do about the required parking, number of parking spots that were gonna be required for
Yeah.
the courthouse and that building.
Yeah, the required parking stalls for that building.
I mean,
So,
honestly, that'd be better if we end up moving our parking down to that. Minus the fact they gotta cross the street, but I mean, it'd be better because you have access to it instead of having to go all the way around. You got you have to go down on a one-way street to get to our current parking lot, you know, so being able to access it from multiple points makes that a little easier too.
This doesn't even include, the city's requirement, the way I understood Jason, maybe that was the reason I wanted him to stay, doesn't even include customer, what do you want to call it, customers, taxpayers, whatever parking. It's just parking for us, our operation, we don't even have enough, stalls for that hardly. We gotta have.
Well, I mean, we're in a downtown area. Parking will forever be challenges in the
Right.
downtown area. And I think as long as we, work in good intentions with the city of Council Bluffs, while they may have, you know, a set code, every code has a way to shape it in a different direction. So, I think that they would be more than willing to work with us to keep a building in their Haymarket area. I think that's important to the success of a Haymarket area in an urban area. And, that's kind of one of the things that they have to take into consideration as we're adding this new public health structure. Yeah, we're removing the old community services building, but there will be a building going back in. You know, the architectural style of it does need to fit that it is, you know, that it is in a Haymarket area and that it meets the urban feel of things. I talked to Brandon to make sure we could go back to the 0 lot line right against the sidewalk where it currently was. He was in favor of that part of it. So there are those different things that we'll do to help appease what the city would like downtown and what we need.
So, when they say that to aesthetically match up with the rest of the Haymarket area, what?
You want it to fit within the Haymarket area.
Right, no, they don't want it to be a metal building, I guess, is what you're saying, or not?
No, not just a metal building, but it could be the style of the brick on the outside. It could be the awnings over the windows. You want some portion of it to meet the feel of a Haymarket area.
Okay. The existing building apparently doesn't do that, I think.
I'm not overly opposed to where the building's there across the street. I don't think that's really gonna matter in the grand scheme, as long as we do have a plan for our parking and how we wanna handle things. But
This is to explore,
it's almost better because it's right on
Correct.
campus. I mean,
explore where and when and how.
it ruins Mitch's view.
They'll set the timeline on it. This is to develop the overall project, set the plans, you know, they'll develop an RFP, they'll send it out to 5 different architects. Those 5 different architects will submit, drawings, conceptual drawings of what the building would look like, meeting the specs that we've discussed out. Out of those 5, we'll interview 3. And then once we kind of get a mash on which one we want, then we'll go with that. Then the RFP would go out for the general contractor on it.
I personally don't have any issues with moving forward with field day. However, I would like a cost.
Yeah.
Not to exceed cost.
Do we want to bring them in?
I think we should. If we don't, I'm afraid we're gonna end up with another $1.5 million shooting range issue.
I would withdraw my motion,
Well,
so we could bring them in.
Is that okay, Matt?
And go,
1 week can hurt you, I
No,
guess.
you wanna meet with them and discuss it, that's fine.
let's,
I'd like to have some kind of an idea. Right now, what we're doing is we're just saying, oh, just go ahead and
Well, I
go
mean,
by the hour.
if you wanna put $30,000, not to exceed $30,000 on it, and then make me come back to the board if it's gonna exceed that amount, I mean, you certainly can.
I guess as a week gain, are you losing something substantial if you wait a week?
No, I'm not.
So I think we can just wait 1 week to do this, and then you get your answer you're looking for.
And I think that's,
It's not just my answer,
Well,
I mean, I think
the
it's.
board needs to know.
I get it, but you made the statement, that's why I said it that way, so.
And you're saying, if I understand you correct, that the urban renewal bond is what we're using for this.
We
Even
earmarked,
though,
we allocated 3 million on that bond for this project.
okay, so we may,
Well, that was part of the initial discussion, we've never really had it.
right,
And an actual get-together with this board to figure out what projects we are going to look at.
right. Well, and then if we, from listening, just, I mean.
What are you shaking your head for? I mean, have we had a meeting to discuss?
We've had like 15 meetings on what we wanna do, and then now all of a sudden it's like a big surprise, so.
It's not a surprise to me.
Not, but we never, I don't think the rest of the board was brought up into it, to be honest with you, but.
I haven't
No,
been.
You all have been there, Jesus,
No.
I wrote it on a whiteboard, and we were all in here every time I
Yeah,
brought it up, so don't
We
tell me
did.
you weren't here.
That's
That's
as
not
much
a
as we
true
gone
statement.
through.
Well, that was.
Yeah, I'm a little sensitive about it, because, we worked our tails off to get to this point, and it took a lot of work to get this urban renewal thing even passed, and thankfully, the city bought into it and helped us with it. And so now you're all acting like you haven't seen this dang thing, and it's not true.
No.
That's not how we're acting.
But Matt, there's, a potential, and Justin, I guess, that we can have other funds for this building, potentially out of these rescue dollars or COVID-19 dollars or whatever for this project.
Correct, and that was when, Justin made the point on making me tell them that if I were to get extra funds, it has to be phased, right? So the urban renewal dollars has to be phase one completed. And then if you all chose to give us another $1 million from the American Rescue Plan for an addition on this building, that could be phase two. So all of those things would be managed through this services agreement.
So if we would have had this further along, we could have laid this in potentially, acts.
Correct. But that's the point I'm trying to get to.
Right, Congresswoman's.
If I'd had plans and we would have known what our costs and things are gonna be, then yeah, that's a project I can submit to Senator Axne's piece or whatever, Representative
Community
Axne's
projects.
community projects that she has, but we don't even have, right now, it's just in our heads. Are we gonna get a new public health building? Yes, we're gonna get a new public health building. What does it look like? Nobody knows, because we haven't taken that next step to it, and that's what I'm trying to get to that next
Where the
step.
city had that project in hand and they got $1 million out of $1.4 million. So, okay. So we're gonna postpone this until next week. Is that Shay pulled his motion? You pulled your
Let's
second.
do, I agree, I think we'd feel better knowing not to exceed.
Change that. So we're gonna just put it back on the agenda then, or do we need anything on it?
Table it, is that?
Postpone it until next week?
We'll just do no action.
Or
You can just do, pull your motion and there's no action on
Okay,
it.
Shay and Grody pulled the motion.
And if that's something that, moving forward, we want every time on a services agreement, if you guys want the contractors here, then just let me know and I'll make sure that we have those
Well, I
people
think
available.
it's probably just good practice that we have probably not to exceed number and have the expectations so everybody understands what that is.
Okay.
Okay. And then, I noticed that one name on there, I can't, she used to work here in town.
Brenda Carrico? It was Brenda Carrico, Andrea Cathall.
They're all field days?
All of them were at one time employed by the City of Council Bluffs Planning
Right.
Department.
But now they're all field day?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. Jenna Lemry, Director HR, Heather Schaefer, HR.
She's doing
rescind to approve and authorize chairman to sign E-Verify memorandum of understanding for employer access portal between the Department Head of Homeland Security and Potawatomi County and E-Verify.
So E-Verify is through the Department of Homeland Security, and it allows businesses, so when you hire someone, you go on there and put their information in, get 2 copies of their ID to validate that they are authorized to work in the United States. We already use E-Verify, but it goes through NeoGov. So when we hire someone through NeoGov, it automatically flows through to E-Verify. But if a new hire doesn't have an email address, then they can't use NeoGov, and then we can't do E-Verify. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen where someone comes in and doesn't have an email address. Sometimes we can convince them to create an email address. Other times, they don't want one. It's just not something that they want, something that they would use, which is the situation that we're in right now. And so you have to do E-Verify for every employee that comes in. But if without an email address, we can't do it through NeoGov, which means we have to do it through the employee or employer portal with E-Verify, and you just have to have a contract. It requires a signature. We felt that it should be signed by one of the board members rather than us.
That's just a free deal, right?
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Who made the motion?
I did.
Schultz made the motion, Shay second. Just real quick, just for my own, so if I own company XYZ, can I just go to the E-Verify website and put in the employee, if I'm looking at hiring somebody?
You have to register and sign a document like what you have there. Every business has to sign that.
Okay.
And then, yep, they send you a password and a link.
Then it's free after that?
It's always free. It's just, you just have to sign that document. Yep.
Yeah, I find it interesting today, what department is it, I guess I could ask that, what department is it that the employee is going to work in potentially that doesn't have email?
Recycling center.
Found that interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have email.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Discussion and or decision to approve change to employee handbook. What was John here for the E-Verify?
John?
John Ress.
He was probably here that's from Matt, the Hughes.
Oh.
You got something to say?
Employee handbook policy number 403, insurance retirement program.
So in regards to this policy, I just wanted to take a lot of the specifics out of it, such as the price of what health insurance costs, the price of what dental insurance. Those belong in the benefit documents, not in the employee handbook. Because anytime we would have a change, then we'd have to update this employee handbook versus that benefit document, which goes out to employees every year during open enrollment. So the purpose of this is to get those specifics out of this employee handbook so that we don't have to update it every single time we have a change.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Now, there's, down there on the wellness program, it says spouses are, well, maybe that's just a redundant.
And the wellness program too, I think we need to spell that out better in the benefit documents when it comes to spouses. We often have a lot of questions about that, and we need to spell that out better. But again, that's for the benefit documents, not for the employee handbook that says we have a wellness program, period, and then you go to those other documents to find out the specifics.
Okay, yeah, well, that was my concern, is that the employees would like to know what they're spending and what the county's spending.
Yep.
But if it's in another
Yep.
place, then they can find it there.
Yeah.
And then they can go and look at it and say, thanks, Mr. Wickman, for spending so much money on my. Yeah.
Yes, but you're right, Melvin, it is in that annual benefit document, which is on the website too. Anyone can see it at any time.
Okay, all those in favor of say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Now, discussion decision regarding employees percentage of benefit contribution.
I didn't get the first and second on that, I'm sorry.
First was Schultz and second was Shea.
All right. I should just do that automatic, I guess. I should just put it in there automatically, I guess. It's 90% of it.
Regarding the percentage of benefit contribution.
So today, employees pay 10% of the premium of the benefits. It's my recommendation that we increase that to 11%. And because we're taking that out of the employee handbook, I think it's something that we should discuss annually. About this same time every year after we receive all the information from our brokers and IGHCP to then determine what the percentage is going to be each year. Very similar to, January 1st, you guys meet and talk about a lot of different things that are going to be for the next year. It would be that same concept. But what my recommendation for July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 is 11%.
Can you put, just for perspective's sake, can you put a dollar amount to what 1% equals for a family in a single plan?
You bet. So a single plan, the difference will be $9.64 per month. A family plan, the difference from what they were paying 10% to 11% will be $22.74 per month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Discussion?
It's not a huge dollar amount. These are always the careful conversations that we have to have, and sometimes we have these in closed session, obviously, too, but, I firmly believe that there's growth in the county when things are going well, that we should continue to allow our benefits to maintain themselves and be as good as they've always been. And I would argue last year was a good year for us, despite COVID and despite, some of the changes that we have had. So, like I said, I don't think it's gonna break the bank, and if the board decides to move forward with this, I'm not gonna have huge heartburn over 1%, but I do wanna make it known that, it's not always necessary to have to do these things, so.
When was the last time there was an increase?
So based on some past union contracts, it looks like in 2017 is when we changed it to 10%. So we haven't had any change.
And it used to be just a flat dollar amount of,
Yep, it looks like.
25 per family and $10.
Well, it looks like the one union contract I looked at from 2014 to 2017, if you had a single plan, you paid $30. If you had a family plan, you paid a flat $110. And then I could certainly go back, but we haven't had any changes from that 10% since 2017.
Yeah, to say that.
And I think some of those flat rates had been increased years ago from maybe 100 to 110, but I can't.
I'm sure you're probably right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
No, the only thing I would add is if it was 2017, if you look at back at our budgets and what insurance has gone up every year, averaging about 5% a year. So the cost to the taxpayers of Potawatomi County went up 25%. That's a lot of money.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. I would like to now, I thought they were gonna stick you on after the agenda, but we can go ahead and do it, Mitch, if you want. It's just discussion only. I was gonna have Mitch show, are you prepared?
Yeah, I got some documents I can show you guys.
See ya.
Thanks, Matt.
See you, Matt.
Should we take a 5-minute break?
This will be
a study session?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I just wanna show you some of the stuff he's working on, get your feedback real quick.
Okay.
So,
Quick break.
yeah, we'll take 5-minute break.
Let me check mine.
Go ahead, check it out.
I'm old enough I can take my own break.